I was walking down the street after how many surgeries and physical therapy, and somebody saw him. Like, wow, I haven't seen him so long. How you doing? He's like, I'm great. I couldn't be better if I got shot again. Want to see my scar?
Welcome back to Jewish and Joyful, episode 2 of our new series of being Jewish and Joyful. Today I got to sit with someone who I believe is one of the world's greatest speakers. He's lectured around the world. His name is Rav Gav, Rav Gavriel Friedman. Before we get to the episode, I'd just like to tell you about Parsha Knowledge, the provider of this podcast. If you'd like to receive Torah thoughts, stories, and inspiration on the weekly Parsha, you can email parshaknowledge@gmail.com. Visit the website parshaknowledge.com. And now to this week's episode with Rav Gav. Welcome, Rav Gav. Shalom Aleichem. It's great to have you here.
Aleichem Shalom.
You walk around and you always are happy, you're always joyful, you're always besimcha. I want to know, is this something you work on? Do you have trouble with this? Does it come natural?
Whoa, that is a good question. I think that everybody has their own challenges, and for the most part, in the public eye, those are not my challenges. So what you're seeing is the areas which aren't necessarily the parts that are challenging for me. The parts that are challenging for me are challenging, just like anybody. When you ask, like, is it something that I work on? The answer is, it is something that I work on. I mean, for the most part, thank God, I'm generally happy. You know, I think things are good, things are great. The challenge isn't when things are good and great. The things are when things are challenging, like today, when I had a flat tire and I had to spend 3.5 hours dealing with it. That was less happy, let's call it. A big rabbi, he was going through a hard time, certain things on Rosh Hashanah. And he said, I could tell that this is a siman tov, that it's going to be a good year. So when today, when I had this flat tire thing, I don't know what made me think of that, but I said, this is a siman tov, it's going to be a good year. But yeah, I try to focus on the fact that there's something bigger going on over here, and that this is actually something which is positive, even if I might not be seeing it right now.
The happiest person that you know? That's a hard question, right?
I mean, I don't know the answer. The first thing that popped into my head was my 4.5-year-old son. And I guess it's just the joy of life, you know, just enjoying himself. There's no real thought process. It's not overthinking. It's just like whatever comes, to focus on the good, you know. I have the classic story that I always tell about this idea is about the guy who was always in a good mood. And so people asked him, like, how are you always in such a good mood? He said, because I choose to be in a good mood. Like, come on, it can't be that easy. I said, yeah, it's really that easy. And I'm giving you the abridged version here, but the main part of the story is that eventually, unfortunately, this guy worked in a restaurant, and one day he was closing up, and somebody came in, and they shot him, and it was a whole thing. He called the ambulance, he got saved. Fast forward a year plus later, and he's walking down the street after how many surgeries and physical therapy, and somebody saw him, like, wow, I haven't seen him so long, how you doing? He's like, I'm great, I couldn't be better if I got shot again. Want to see my scar? They're like, oh, bro, come on. You know, I'd kind of be a Akiva. How could you still be happy in such a case? He said, I told you it was a choice. He goes, what do you mean it's a choice? It's not that simple. He goes, it's really that simple. When I got to the hospital, the doctors were looking at me with this look of death. And the ambulance are like, you're going to make it. But at the hospital, they're like, yeah, are you allergic to anything? And as they're working on the patient, he said, yes, I am. And they lifted their hands up and said, okay, what are you allergic to? He said, bullets. And they all burst out laughing. And he said, listen, I want to live. Please treat me like a live person, like a dead person. And it really upped their game, and because of that, they ended up saving his life. And what comes from this idea is that understand that although we may not be in control, we're not always in control of the circumstances we're in, we do have a choice, at least theoretically. The goal is to make it practical. And if we're able to just take a step back and recognize, wow, this is, I don't know necessarily why, but I recognize that God only wants for my best. And I'm able to take this in stride and be able to go ahead and move forward with it. One very powerful idea that I heard from a rabbi, Rabbi Berger's, and he was saying how, I think it was Shlomo HaMelech who said he wants to have one phrase that he could have in order to when things are going really well, to not be too arrogant, and when things are not going too well, to not get depressed. And he came up with the phrase, and he put on a ring, and that was "Gam-Ze Yavor." This too shall pass. Decide how we deal with that circumstance, and to recognize that for one who believes in the Lord Almighty, and we understand the fact that everything has a reason, everything God does is for the best. So that when a person is going through a hard time, say, "Gam-Ze Yavor," it's going to pass. And when things are going great, don't get too arrogant, because "Gam-Ze Yavor," this too shall pass. So he said, well, it should be modern day. A modern day saying shouldn't be "Gam-Ze Yavor," but smile. You're on candid camera. Now, this depends on your listening audience, but for those who are a little bit older than younger, they'll remember a certain program called Candid Camera. A certain show where they would do pranks, and it was a whole prank thing. And at the end, it's a show, it's a prank, and then everyone would start laughing. The world we live in, the experiences that we go through that are challenging, and yes, we all go through challenging times. It's important to understand that it's all for a purpose, it's all for a reason. And when we're going through something hard, just try to stop and remind yourself, smile. You're on candid camera. You may not see it now, but B'ez Hashem, one day we will understand with the help of God, we're going to be able to see why this really was the best thing for us. And the goal is to try to pull that out right now. So my friend, smile. You're on candid camera.
So Jewish and joyful. And our lives are custom made. It's incredible. We have the best lives for us in an amazing, incredible way. And if one would recognize that, how it would change the way they would perceive. I don't need to talk about when things are positive, although that too, b'makir tov, when they're good. But even when perhaps they don't seem as good, how good they are. The Gemara says in Brachos, Daf Hey Amud Aleph, towards the bottom, I think. The Gemara makes a comparison. The Gemara makes a comparison between salt and Yisurim, between salt and pain. And the Gemara explains that there's a bris by Melech and there's a bris by Yisurim. Without going through the whole Gemara, take a look at yourselves, you should. The Gemara towards the bottom is about 7-8 lines up at the bottom. But there's a comparison between salt and pain. And I heard, I don't know where this is from, I can just tell you, I heard it from Rav Eitan Feiner, who shared an amazing idea once. He said that what's the comparison between salt and Yisurim and pain? And he said, salt is a very unique spice. If a person is making food, so when you put salt on food, it's very different than any other spice. When you put other spices on food, it gives it a taste. It can give it a taste. Salt doesn't give food a taste. If you put too much salt, you can't eat it. You put too little salt, you don't taste it. But if you put the right amount of salt, you don't taste the salt, you taste the food. The salt brings out the actual taste of the food. That's what salt does. No other spice does that. Every other spice will cover it up, give it another different taste, a unique, etc. But salt will bring out the taste of the food itself. So too is Yisurim. When a person goes through a challenge in life, one must understand that that's salt. If you give too much, it kills a person. You give too little, you don't taste it. But you give the right amount, it brings out the essence of who the person is. And the Ribono Shalom is the one who's doing it. He knows exactly the measurement that every person needs in their particular life and circumstance.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Rav Gav. We B'ez Hashem are going to be having some more incredible content, including videos and interviews coming soon. So please follow and subscribe for more. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, please call 646-397-2320. That's 646-397-2320. You could also email the provider, Parsha Knowledge, by emailing parshaknowledge@gmail.com. That's PARSHA@gmail.com. Or you can visit parshaknowledge.com. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing day. And remember to be Jewish and joyful.
So Jewish and joyful.